I should have never gone back to Devil's Backbone, but grief does strange things to a man. It bends your sense of time, of direction. It makes you chase ghosts into places no living soul should tread. I didn't believe in curses, not back then. I believed in pain, and I believed in silence, and when Sarah died, I had too much of both. So when I got the call that her journal had been found, months after the park rangers gave up the search, I knew I had to go. Not for closure, not for hope, but because a part of me never believed she was really gone. She was a fighter, a backpacker, an amateur survivalist. She'd hiked that stretch of West Texas desert every spring like clockwork, chasing the wild blooms along the Devil's Backbone Trail. She knew the terrain, knew the heat. She wasn't supposed to just vanish, but she did, and when they mailed me her journal, found tucked into a crevice near Skeleton Ridge, weather-worn, half-burned at the edges, I read every page like it was scripture. Her last entry was written on the third day. There's something out here, something old, watching. I'm not alone anymore. No one had answers, just theories. Heat stroke, animal attack, human predators. But deep down, I think everyone knew something wasn't right. The Rangers stopped doing solo patrols in that sector. The search teams went silent about what they'd seen. One of them quit the force altogether, no explanation. So I packed up. One bag, a canteen, a flare gun, her journal, and a whisper of a plan. I told myself it was just a hike, just a retracing of her steps. But the moment I crossed into that scorched valley, I felt it. The pressure in the air. Like stepping into a place that didn't want you there. They call it the Devil's Backbone for a reason. The desert there isn't just empty. It feels hollowed out. Like something scooped the life from the land and left nothing but bones and bad memories. The wind doesn't whistle. It moans. The rock formations twist like screaming faces, and the sun hangs too low, too red, like it's bleeding out across the sky. I kept to the trail at first, following the path Sarah marked in her journal. Her handwriting was shaky in the last entries, off-center, not like her. The words looped in strange ways, spiraling down the page. She mentioned things she never talked about, the whispers at night, the skinwalker with no face, the man made of thorns. I thought maybe it was just dehydration, a mind unraveling. But on the second day, I saw the first sign that something was deeply wrong. It was a deer, or at least it used to be, lying in the sand, belly up. Its legs snapped backward, ribs torn open like a blossom, but no blood. Not a single drop, just sand poured into the wound like someone was trying to fill it. Its eyes were still wet, still aware. I moved faster after that. The air got heavier. Sound didn't travel right. My footsteps didn't echo. I'd shout into the canyon and hear nothing back. No birds, no insects, just silence, thick and unnatural. Then, on the third night, I found the shrine, a ring of charred stones, bone fragments stacked into shapes, not symbols, but faces, human faces, each one staring upward, mouth agape. And in the center, something was buried, a scrap of fabric. Sarah's bandana. That's when I started hearing her voice, soft like a memory. "Alex," she whispered, "don't let it wear my face." I didn't sleep. I just sat there, clutching her journal, staring into the darkness while the wind hummed like something alive. I wanted to believe I was losing it, that the grief had finally cracked me open, but I could feel it in my gut. Something was near. Something old, patient. It came for me on the fourth night. I don't remember falling asleep. One second I was sitting against a boulder, the next I was dreaming, or what I thought was a dream. I was in our kitchen. Sarah was at the sink, humming. But when she turned around, her face was wrong. Close but off. The eyes too wide, the smile too still. She opened her mouth and a dry, creaking voice spilled out. "I remember how your skin tasted when you cried, do you?" I woke screaming. The fire was out. The stars had vanished. The sky was pitch black. No moon, no clouds, no light. Just absolute void. And standing at the edge of camp was a shape. Tall, wrapped in something that looked like skin, but didn't move right. It had her face, my wife's face, but its eyes were completely black. I ran, blindly, through rock and thistle and saltbrush, fell twice, split my knee open, lost my pack, but I didn't stop. I couldn't, because behind me I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, mimicking my pace, always 10 steps behind. When I reached Skeleton Ridge, I collapsed. My throat was dry, my hands were shaking, and there, lying in the sand, was her journal. Open to a page I hadn't read, a passage written in a style that wasn't hers. It wears you, first your voice, then your thoughts, then your face. Until nothing left is yours, it feeds on the grief, that's the doorway. The pain is what calls it. I knew then that it had followed her too, and it had won. I stayed on that ridge for hours, maybe a day. I don't know. Time got weird. The sun didn't rise, my shadow didn't move. I began to see people in the rocks, dozens of them watching. People who looked like they'd been part of this place for centuries. Pale, silent, with hollow eyes and mouths full of sand. One of them had Jack's climbing patch. Another wore Sarah's hiking boots. I would have joined them. I wanted to. But something inside me, the last clean piece of my soul, told me to move. To crawl, limp, drag myself toward the edge of the ridge. To scream my name. Not hers, mine, over and over until my voice cracked. That's when the flare gun went off. A ranger patrol scanning from above saw me. They said I was lucky. Said it was a miracle I was found alive. But they also said something else. Quietly. One of the younger rangers, a guy with sun-scarred skin and shaking hands, told me this before I left the hospital. People go missing out there every year. Most we find, some we don't. But sometimes we find the wrong ones, something wearing them, and it smiles when we look too close. I didn't answer, because I knew what he meant. Even now, I can't trust mirrors. Sometimes I see something, move when I don't, and sometimes when I speak I hear her voice echo behind mine, just a second too late. Whatever I left in that desert, it wasn't all of it. Whatever followed me back, it knows how to wait. And it still remembers the sound of my grief.
They told us not to follow the lights, not in Anza Borrego, not after dark. That's what the park ranger said with a half smile when he handed us the backcountry permit. If you see 'em, he warned, you're either too tired, too dehydrated, or they've taken a liking to you. We laughed it off. My boyfriend Jack even made a joke, something about aliens and rednecks. I remember the ranger didn't laugh. He just looked past us, out toward the desert flats, and muttered, "Some things out there aren't interested in being found. We should have listened. It was supposed to be a healing trip." Jack and I had been through hell the past year. A miscarriage in spring, a car accident that left me with a limp, and a growing silence between us that no therapy could fix. I thought maybe the desert would reset us, clean the slate. We packed light, just the essentials. Jack brought his drone, I brought my sketch pad. No cell service, no distractions. Just 4 days in the backcountry, hiking from Fonts Point to the Santa Rosa foothills. The first day was perfect, hot, dry, quiet. The kind of quiet that presses on your ears like you're underwater. Jack kept pointing out shapes in the rock formations. One looked like a cathedral, another like a sleeping dog. We took pictures, made dumb jokes. For a while, it felt like we were okay again. That night, we camped beneath an overhang and watched the stars bleed into the sky. And then we saw them. 3 lights, hovering in the distance, just over the horizon. Soft, pulsing, too slow for drones, too low for planes. They didn't move like anything man-made, just hung there, swaying slightly, like buoys on invisible waves. Jack thought it was some kind of mirage. "Light refraction," he said. "Desert." Air's weird like that. I wanted to believe him, but something about the rhythm, it felt deliberate, measured, alive. The lights blinked once, then vanished. The next morning, our compass didn't work. Jack's GPS said we were 12 miles south of where we should have been, but that didn't make sense. We'd only hiked 5. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe we'd veered off course, maybe the ridge had thrown the signal. But then I noticed something else. The desert was different. Too quiet. No wind, no insects. Even the sun seemed wrong. Too sharp, too white. Like a spotlight instead of daylight. We pushed on, hoping to reconnect with the trail. But the further we walked, the more it felt like we weren't moving forward. The landscape repeated itself. The same crooked ocotillo, the same rock with a rust-coloured stripe, the same coyote skull. I know how crazy that sounds, but I swear we passed that skull 3 times. I even marked the sand next to it. The mark was still there 2 hours later. Jack flew the drone straight up to get a better view. The footage came back blank, just static. Then a frame, just one, flickered through. It showed a figure, tall, thin, pale, standing directly behind me. I didn't see it in real time, only when we played it back. We didn't talk much after that, just kept moving, drinking in small sips, stopping to rest only when the heat made our vision double. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the lights returned. Closer this time, brighter. They hovered just above a distant ravine. 3 perfect orbs, each the size of a beach ball, glowing with that same unnatural rhythm. Jack stared like he was hypnotized. I told him not to go near them. I pleaded. He said, "I think they're calling me." That night, he walked off, woke to the silence. His boots were gone. His pack was gone. Only his drone case remained, zipped open and empty. I screamed his name until my throat cracked. No answer. I followed his tracks as long as I could, but they stopped halfway up a ridge. Not faded, stopped. Like something had picked him up and carried him away. Then I heard it. His voice. Far off. Whispering my name. But it wasn't coming from one direction. It came from everywhere at once. From the rocks, the sand, the sky. And beneath it, a hum. Low and vibrating, like something just under the skin of the world was waking up. I didn't sleep. The next morning I turned back. I no longer cared about the trail or the plan. I just wanted to find the road, or a ranger, or anything. But every direction looked the same, and the sun, it never moved. It just hovered at mid-morning brightness, for hours, like time had been paused or looped. I walked until my legs gave out, fell asleep under a creosote bush. When I woke, I wasn't alone. A woman stood a few feet away, barefoot, skin burned, and cracked like old leather. Her eyes were empty sockets, but she was smiling, and her mouth moved as if speaking, though no sound came out, just the whispering wind. Behind her, the lights hovered, silent sentinels in the air. Then, like a film melting in reverse, she vanished. The lights faded. I was alone again, but not really, because they were watching. The days blurred. I stopped keeping track. I stopped drinking. I stopped talking. The only sounds were the wind and the hum and Jack's voice calling from nowhere. I came across a dry creek bed filled with bones, deer, coyote, human, all bleached, all arranged in spirals. And in the centre, a stone carved with symbols I didn't recognise. I ran, or tried to. My legs were lead. My lungs refused to work. Then the lights came again. Not above the horizon, but all around me. They pulsed in a rhythm I could feel in my bones. A message, not in words, in something older, something that spoke to the part of the mind that still remembered what it meant to fear the dark. They weren't trying to guide me. They were hunting. I woke in a hospital in Borrego Springs. A family on a day hike found me 3 miles off the main trail, half buried, in sand, barely breathing. I'd been missing 6 days. Jack was never found. No footprints, no drone, no gear, nothing. They ruled it as heat stroke, delirium, a tragic accident. But I know better, because sometimes when I close my eyes, I see those lights blinking behind my eyelids. And sometimes, just before dawn, I hear Jack's voice again. Still, calling, still lost. And somewhere out there in the endless desert silence, the lights are still watching, waiting for someone else to follow.
The Sonoran Desert doesn't whisper, it listens. That's what locals say. People who've lived in Gila Bend or Ajo long enough to know which dunes to cross and which ones to leave alone when the sky turns copper and the saguaros cast long, crooked shadows. I didn't believe any of it when I took the job. My name is Erin Maddox, I'm 34, an archivist by trade, historian by passion. When Arizona State University offered me a 6-week grant to document lost settler trails through the Sonoran, I jumped at the chance. Who wouldn't want to trace sun-bleached wagon ruts, uncover buried camps, maybe even find ruins of forgotten missions swallowed by sand? I came looking for history, but the desert didn't want to be found. It wanted to find me. On the 3rd, Day I pulled into a roadside trading post outside Ajo, the kind of place where the heat warps the air and the sun-baked gas pumps look older than the road itself. I went inside for a cold drink, but the old man behind the counter, a leathery guy named Clyde, noticed the map on my dashboard before I could even get to the register. He tapped the dusty glass with one crooked finger and said, "Where'd you get that one?" I told him it was from the university archives. It mapped out a trail believed to have been used by a settler caravan that vanished in 1874. Clyde leaned closer, squinting at a red line that cut through the middle of nowhere, southwest of the Pinnacate Peaks. "That trail don't exist anymore," he said flatly. "Washed out by a flash flood long before you or I were born." "That's the idea," I said, trying to keep things light. "I'm out here to see if anything's left of it." Clyde stared longer than was comfortable, then nodded slowly and reached under the counter. "Some things are lost for a reason. Miss," he handed me a battered canteen, "you'll want this more than water." I opened it later in the car, expecting water or maybe whiskey. It was full of salt. I started my hike early the next morning. By then, I'd left paved roads and cell service far behind. My rented Fork 4 was hidden beneath a rock outcrop, and I carried everything I needed: GPS, compass, field journal, camera, extra batteries, and enough water to last 4 days. The ghost trail was little more than a faint discoloration in the sand, visible only in satellite overlays and hints on topographic maps. I walked until noon, when the heat became a living thing pressing down on my skull. That's when I found them. 3 tall stone formations worn smooth by time, standing upright in a crescent shape. I made camp nearby, sketched the stones in my journal, and jotted a note that stuck in my mind later. Not on any map, no footprints but mine. That night something woke me. No animals, no wind, just silence, thick and unnatural, pulsing in my ears. Then a whisper slid through the stillness, dry and papery. "You're not the first." I sat bolt upright in my tent, heart hammering. It was just wind, I told myself, just my nerves and the weight of isolation. Still, I kept the flashlight on and clutched the canteen of salt Clyde had given me, though I didn't know why. The next morning, I stepped out of my tent and nearly screamed. A stone, flat, the size of a dinner plate, sat right outside, etched with strange symbols that weren't there the night before. They weren't letters. They looked like something pretending to be language, scratch marks laid with purpose, like the desert was trying to remember how to speak. I knelt down and touched it. It was warm, too warm, and the second my fingers brushed its surface, something inside me shifted. Not physically, but in my mind. A vibration, a low hum just beneath my thoughts, like someone murmuring under their breath a room away. I yanked my hand back and kicked sand over the stone, heart pounding. My instincts were screaming, but I didn't leave. Not yet. I hiked 2 more miles that day, desperate to shake the feeling of being watched. My gear felt heavier. The sun felt closer. And every time I paused to check my location, I had to force myself to not look back. Just before dusk, I stumbled upon what looked like an old settler's camp, half buried in the dunes. 3 collapsed canvas tents, a rusted pot still hanging from a soot-black tripod, a single boot, and a child's doll with one cracked eye staring up from the sand. I walked the perimeter, calling out. No response, no bones either, just the impression that something had been here and left in a hurry. That's when I found the journal. It was tucked beneath the corner of the largest tent, sun-baked and rotting, its leather cover stiff with age. The name on the first page was Judah Wainwright. He'd been leading settlers across this trail in 1874. The last entry chilled my blood. They see us, hear our prayers, but they are not God. They came from the sand and they want our names. Do not speak, do not sleep facing east, do not answer, if they call. The last words were smeared with blood. That night I camped farther from the ruins than I wanted to. I told myself it was for safety, in case of animals, but I knew better. Deep down, something had shifted. I didn't want the camp to see me. Still the voices returned, dry, brittle, scraping through the dark like wind across dead grass. Erin Maddox. They knew my name. I didn't answer. I held my breath until my ribs ached. The sand outside shifted, not from wind, but from weight. Slow footsteps, crunching without rhythm. I dared to look out. Figures stood at the edge of the firelight, tall, impossibly thin. Skin like sun-bleached sandstone, stretched tight over angular frames. No mouths, hollow eyes that seemed to drink the light. They didn't move, just watched, and when the sun broke over the horizon, they were gone. The next day was a blur of panic. I ran without direction, GPS held in a trembling hand, but the signal was gone. My compass spun in lazy circles. I screamed until my throat cracked, begged the empty sky for rescue, but the desert offered no answer, just heat and stillness. Sometime near dusk, I came across a well, a perfect circle of old stone in the middle of nowhere. I peered inside, dropped a pebble. There was no sound. Then a voice echoed up from the darkness. "You're not the first," I backed away, shaking. I realized then that the journal, the voices, the stone, none of this was random. This wasn't just a place, it was a wound in the world, a trap, a cage that fed on curiosity and names and blood, and I had walked straight into it. The next thing I remember is Clyde pulling me out of my SUV, bright lights, IV drips, a nurse saying I'd been gone 6 days. I didn't correct her. I didn't say that to me, it had felt much longer. They said I was dehydrated, hallucinating. But my camera was wiped clean, my GPS history deleted, and my field journal, as all 6 days' worth of notes, had been filled front to back with one repeated sentence. "They want your name, don't give it. I'm home now. Safe, if that word still means anything." But sometimes, just before dawn, I wake with the taste of sand in my mouth, and in the corner of my vision, across the street or just beyond the trees, I see them. Tall, still, watching. I haven't spoken my full name since, because the desert doesn't forget, and it still listens.